Hello, I'm Brian Bowyer, and I would like to thank Brad Proctor for allowing me to participate in the 31 Days of Horror video series on his YouTube channel. So thank you for that, Brad Proctor. Tonight, I'm going to read a story from one of my collections, Perpetual Dread. This one is called Like Father, Like Son. It was hard for Kevin to believe his father had been in the ground for 6 months already, and now that he was finally out of the hospital, he figured it was time to go see the grave. Sunset Memorial Cemetery was right off Eisenhower Drive, and it also happened to be right beside Pinecrest Hospital, the psychiatric hospital in which Kevin had been a patient for the past 3 years. He had just recently been released, and he didn't have a car yet, so he had to walk to the cemetery. Because the cemetery was large, and because he had never been there, he had to walk around a lot to find his father's grave. By the time he found the headstone, the sun was beginning its descent. A fifth of George Dickel whiskey leaned against the headstone, and Kevin wondered who had left it there. Most of his father's friends were dead. Very few people lived that wild lifestyle and made it to old age, and his father was only 44 when he died. Probably one of the many women who had always been in and out of his father's life. Whether they were seeking his attention at the bars in which he sang and played guitar, or showing up at the house looking for more cocaine at 4 o'clock in the morning, it seemed that women always wanted something from his father. Kevin had the same last name as his father, and seeing it carved into the headstone in the blood-red light of sunset made him cry. It wasn't a fear of his own mortality that brought tears to his eyes. He just missed his dad so badly it hurt. It was hard for Kevin to believe he was actually gone. He had always seemed so much larger than life, and not just to him, but to almost everyone who knew him. Kevin's friends used to say that if his father started a religious cult, there would be plenty of people lined up to follow him anywhere. And it was true, too. His dad was just that kind of dude, and now he was gone, and it didn't seem possible. Kevin broke the seal on the whiskey and took a drink. Good old George Dickel, he said, and then he heard his father's voice. Best damn whiskey on planet Earth. Dad? Is that you? Of course it is, son. Who else would be talking to you here at my grave? It sure is good to see you. Are you still playing guitar? Kevin took a drink. Not in the past 3 years. They wouldn't let me have one in the hospital. I didn't think they would ever let you out of that place. I just got out today. I wanted to stop by here and see you first, then I'm going home and playing guitar. Glad to hear that, son. You were always my favorite person to jam with, besides your mother, of course. I wish you could have heard that woman sing at least one time before she died. Kevin sat on the grave and drank whiskey. The first stars of twilight started sparkling. He and his father talked about the good old days, and the mother he never knew, and the sister whose disappearance had landed him in the hospital to begin with. "Excuse me, mister," he heard a female say, "but whoever's in that grave can't hear a word you're saying." He turned and saw a girl about his own age, mid-20s. She wore the same gray pajamas and orange flip-flops as all the other patients in the hospital. She smiled, and he thought her smile was pretty. "I'm Heather," she said. "Nice to meet you, Heather. I'm Kevin. Want a shot of this whiskey?" "Lord, no," Heather said. "Whiskey makes me crazier than I already am. So who's in that grave anyway?" Kevin took a drink. "My father." "How did he die?" "Motorcycle crash. Not his fault, though. Some woman ran a stop sign and creamed him. They said she was doing 80 when she ran the stop sign, so at least he died instantly. Her car caught on fire while she was trapped inside and she burned alive." "Good," Heather said. "I'm glad she burned alive. Sorry about your father, though. Is your mother still alive?" Kevin shook his head. "Nope. She died giving birth to Megan and me. Megan was my twin." "Was your twin? So Megan's dead too?" "Yes," Kevin said. "Well, her body was never found. She was abducted 3 years ago, but now I think Megan is finally dead." "What makes you think that?" "Because the voices stopped. After 3 long years, the voices finally stopped about a week ago." "Voices?" "Yes." "I don't understand." Kevin took a drink. "You know how you always hear that some twins share a psychic connection?" "Yes." "Well, Megan and I definitely shared a psychic connection. I could give you 1,000 examples, but I don't feel like it." "You don't have to," Heather said. "I believe you." "Good, and you should, because it's true. Anyway, Megan liked to run. She ran 5 miles a day. Fairly secluded area not far from here. 3 years ago, a man abducted her while she was running. She was talking on her phone with a friend while she ran. She told her friend that a man stopped his truck on the side of the road, got out, and approached her. The last words her friend heard her say were, "Please don't take me." They found her phone on the side of the road. "Oh my God," Heather said. "That's horrible." "Yes, I started hearing the voices that night. 2 voices. Megan's voice and a man's voice. Day and night I heard the man saying terrible things to my sister while he tortured her. And I heard Megan screaming in pain and begging him to stop for 3 straight years." Heather put a hand on Kevin's shoulder. "I'm so sorry. That's the worst thing I've ever heard." Kevin nodded. "Needless to say, I went crazy. They locked me up in Pinecrest not long after Megan was abducted." "You were in Pinecrest?" "Yes, for the past 3 years. I just got out today." "I'm a patient at Pinecrest," Heather said. "I know. I recognize the pajamas and the flip-flops. I don't recognize you, though. I just got there today. How weird is that?" Kevin shrugged and took another drink. "So the voices stopped a week ago?" Heather said. "Yes, that's why I think he finally killed her. I think she's dead now and our connection has been broken." Heather shook her head. "That's tragic, but she's better off now. At least she's no longer being tortured." Kevin nodded. Heather looked over at the hospital. "I need to get back over there before anyone notices that I'm gone. I just wanted to get some fresh air." Kevin said, "Have you met Leonard Hicks yet? The administrator? I hate that son of a bitch." "Yes, I met him, and it's bizarre that you just mentioned him." "Bizarre?" "Yes. How so?" Heather ran fingers through her hair. "Well, I just have to show you. Come on, walk back over there with me. I'll sneak you in the same way I snuck out." "Do it, son," his father's voice. "Walk on over there with her. This could get interesting." Kevin shrugged. "Okay." He stood up and took a drink. Then he capped the bottle and leaned it against his father's headstone. "Lead the way." She led him down a hill and through a small patch of woods. They came to a tall chain-link fence that separated the cemetery from the hospital. They broke from the woods at a spot where the fence had been clipped. He followed her through the hole in the fence and they emerged on one of the hospital's manicured lawns. "Didn't think I'd be back here so soon," Kevin said. "Yes, but this time you're just a visitor." "Is that what I am? A visitor?" "Yes. If anyone stops us, we'll tell them that you're here visiting me." She led him on until they got to the main admissions building and they went inside. They didn't see any doctors, nurses, or security guards anywhere. They saw 2 patients playing ping pong and a few others reading on chairs in the corners. She led him to an office with the words "Leonard Hicks, Administrator" on the door. Kevin had been in the office before. "It's late," Kevin said. "Almost nighttime. Surely he's left for the day." "No," Heather said. "He's still in there." She opened the door and they went inside. Kevin saw no one in the office. "He's under the desk," Heather said. "Under the desk?" "Yes. What's he doing under the desk?" "He's dead." Kevin looked under the desk. Leonard Hicks was on the floor beneath it. Kevin didn't see any blood anywhere, but the man was definitely dead. "What happened?" "Heart attack, I think. We were just sitting in here talking." "Well, he was talking mainly. Then he clutched his chest and fell off his chair. I checked for a pulse, but he didn't have one. He must have died instantly. I freaked out and shoved him beneath the desk. Then I just took off walking, and that's when I saw you." "I'm glad he's dead," Kevin said. "You wouldn't believe how mean he was to me and some of the other patients." "I believe it," Heather said. "I could see the evil in his eyes." "I'm getting out of here," Kevin said. "Me too. I'm going with you. I just wanted to see if anyone had found him yet." They left. Night had fallen and the sky was starry. The air was warm. They took off walking down the sidewalk that ran along Eisenhower Drive. The house where Kevin grew up was just a few blocks down the road and they went there. "I guess it's your house now," Heather said, "since your father is dead." "Yeah, I guess it is," Kevin said. The door was locked, but he had a key and they went inside. There was no electricity, but they could see fairly well by the light of the moon spilling in through the windows. "Nice place," Heather said. Kevin nodded. "Megan and I never moved out. We never wanted to leave our father. The 3 of us had always been a team. Now they're gone and I'm the last one left." "It's a sadness," Heather said. "Yes, it certainly is." Heather stood in the living room while Kevin went in his room and got a guitar. The acoustic was out of tune. He tuned it in the living room, then put it back inside its guitar case. "I want to play a song for my father," he said. "I want to play a song on his grave." They went outside. "I need to get something from the shed," Kevin said. "I'll be right back." He went in the shed and found what he was looking for. He put it in the guitar case and went back outside. Heather was gone. He looked around, but he didn't see her anywhere. He shrugged. Then he walked back to the cemetery. The bottle of whiskey was still leaning against the headstone. He sat down on the grave and took a few drinks. Then he took the guitar out of its case and played a song. "I'm smiling, son," his father's voice. "Out of all the songs you could have played, you chose to play one of mine." Kevin took a drink. "Megan and I were with you when you wrote it. We were sitting on the floor in the living room, and you were sitting on the sofa. It was Christmas Eve. She and I were still kids then. There was a Christmas tree in the corner and a fire blazing in the fireplace. Snow was falling outside the window. It was such a beautiful night. I wish we could all go back to that night and just stay there forever. So do I, son. That was one of the best nights of my life. You were always our favorite songwriter, Dad. Megan and I loved you more than anything." Kevin played guitar on the grave. He and his father talked about the good old days. Kevin's tolerance was low from 3 years of abstinence, and he quickly caught a good whiskey buzz. "Son, can I ask you a question?" "Sure, Dad." "Why did you lie to Heather and tell her I died on a motorcycle?" Kevin shrugged. "I don't know. I suppose I didn't feel like telling her that my father hung himself." "I never would have done that, Kevin, had I thought you were getting out of the hospital." "But I did get out, Dad. I got out today." "Yes, but they didn't let you out. You killed the administrator and left without permission." "I didn't kill the administrator. Heather said he probably had a heart attack." "There was no Heather, Kevin. Heather didn't exist. Heather was just a figment of your imagination. You only walked back over there to see if the man was dead because you thought that maybe it had simply been a dream. But it was no dream, Kevin. You strangled the administrator and shoved him beneath his desk. And of course they'll know it was you. They'll be looking for you soon, and then you'll go right back to the hospital." An oak stood behind his father's headstone. Kevin saw a couple of big, sturdy-looking limbs high up on the tree. He set his guitar down on the grave. Then he took the rope from his guitar case and began fashioning a noose. "Tell me a story, Dad, like you used to do when Megan and I were kids." "Okay, son. Once upon a time, she was the queen of downtown on Friday and Saturday nights, when downtown was still the place to be. Not the way it is now, of course, but the good old days, the glorious days, the bright nights of music and laughter and beautiful women and handsome men whose jewelry and wristwatches sparkled like stars beneath the streetlights. She always had lines of people waiting to get into whatever club she was performing in so they could listen to her sing. She always pulled up in a limousine, and she would step out with a fur around her shoulders and a string of diamonds around her neck that couldn't begin to compete with her smile. Then she would stride into the club, and the crystal clink of glasses filled with champagne and whiskey was music to her ears as she glided to the stage. And that's where she made the magic happen. Back then, people gave her everything. They filled her ears with compliments. They filled her spirit with the rapture in their eyes and the smiles on their faces when they watched her perform. They bought her beautiful, sparkling, expensive things that cost more money than she had ever dreamed of having. And she was so young, too, barely 18 years old. She could have had anything or anyone she ever wanted, but she fell in love with a rock and roll guitar player who was just as young and just as broke as she was. She told him that all the money in the world couldn't mean half as much to her as the feel of his hands holding hers in the night, or the words and the stories that he whispered into her ears when she couldn't sleep. All she wanted was a full and happy life by his side so that one day they could tell their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren about the full and happy life they had together. They got married and she wanted children right away. She got pregnant with twins and gave birth to a baby boy and a baby girl. She got to hold them both before she died, and she told him on her deathbed that her last day was the best day of her life, and no woman who ever lived loved her children more than she did. I wish that you and Megan could have heard your mother sing. I'm Brian Bowyer. Thank you for listening to my story.